Good morning. So today is a beautiful Sunday here in Carlsbad, California, and I am back here with all of you at discoveringyourcosmicself.com. Please join the conversation. We're having wonderful conversations around the book, You Are the Universe, Discovering Your Cosmic Self. And the website is right here underneath, discoveringyourcosmicself.com. And so please join the conversation, and we will continue to expand our awareness together. So today's question is from Krista, and she asks, was there a defining moment in your life when you realized you were consciousness? Or was it an accumulation of all that you have learned during your life and all those that came before you that brought you to that state? Okay, so it's a good question, and I'll answer it the best way I can, and that is chronologically, as a story. So when I was about 6.5 years of age and living in India with my grandparents in the city of Mumbai, my parents were at that time in England, in Edinburgh actually. My father was in England, Edinburgh, you can say Scotland. And one day we got a telegram and that he had passed all his exams and become a fellow of the Royal College of Physicians. Remember, this is a long time ago. I was only 6.5 years old. And it was a big thing for my grandfather, who was an army officer in the British Army before that. So it was a big deal. And he took me and my little brother, who was then around 4 years of age. He took us to a carnival, and then he took us to a movie. I remember the movie. It was Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. And then he brought us home, and all my uncles and aunts came to the house, and he went to the rooftop and he fired some bullets into the sky to celebrate. And then we all went to sleep, and in the middle of the night I woke up to the sound of wailing women. My grandfather had died, and our house help servants were taking me and my little brother to a neighbor's house to spend the rest of the night. It was very confusing and very traumatic. The next day, my grandfather was taken, his body was taken for cremation, and later that day he was brought back as a fistful of ashes in a little jar about this big. And my grandfather and my grandmother were the only people that we were very close to at that time. And one of my uncles made the remark, looking at the jar with the ashes. He said yesterday he was celebrating with his grandchildren. Yesterday he was taking them to the carnival and the movies. And he opened a bottle of champagne and fired some rounds in the sky for celebration. And today he is a fistful of ashes in a little jar. So, what is this life? What is this life? And so at the age of 6 years and a half, I started to think about life. And what is the meaning of life and what does it all mean? Much later, I started to wonder if we were just accidents, if there was meaning or purpose in our existence, and what did it mean to be alive, and what did it mean to be dead. Later I went to medical school with that same intention, and it was actually an interesting thing because I wanted to understand life, and the first thing you're introduced to in medical school is a dead body. And so I started also wondering what was the difference between a body that was alive and a body that was no longer alive. In medical school, as a young intern later, I had the opportunity to actually see people in the moment of death. And, most people actually that I saw when they were not prepared for or a crisis or an illness and they suddenly realized that they were dying, they would panic. And it was in a way very frightening to see the look of panic on their faces as they were dying. But some people also died in peace. And some people died with a smile on their face as if they were transiting to another realm of existence. And of course, there's a moment when the person is no longer alive, and it's kind of a very interesting moment, because in one moment the body is alive, and the next moment there's no one there, it seems. And so I started to wonder what was the difference between that moment and the next moment when there was no one there. In any case, I graduated from medical school. This is a long story. I came to the United States. I got interested in medicine. I did neuroscience, neuroendocrinology. I had a practice in Boston. I taught medicine and endocrinology to a lot of people, medical students and young interns. And all the while, my focus became healing. What was the difference between somebody who recovered and somebody who did not? So, two people could get the same treatment for the same illness. They could see the same doctor, and yet they could have completely different outcomes. So I started to wonder what was the difference. I started to look at what the healing self was. As you know, I've written 86 books now on the interactions between mind, body, and spirit. But all the while, my internal quest was to know who we are. And it was many years of thinking, reflection, meditation, stillness, going on retreats, meeting great teachers, meeting my own guru, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, going to lectures by J. Krishnamurti, meeting actually Laura Huxley, the widow of Aldous Huxley, who told me great stories about her husband and the perennial philosophies, and then beginning to study the perennial philosophies, everyone from Walt Whitman to Emerson to Thoreau to the Eastern wisdom traditions, the sages of the Upanishads, and philosophers like Heidegger and Wittgenstein and Immanuel Kant and Spinoza and many others, that I began to realize that the body-mind that we have is an activity. It's not a thing. Your body is not a thing, it's an activity. It's been an activity all along since the day you were born, and it's an activity that constantly evolves in time. So is the mind, an activity that constantly evolves in time, and so is the experience that we call the universe. So what is an activity of? And I too soon started to realize that everything that we call an experience is an activity in being, in pure consciousness. And consciousness, of course, gets conditioned by situations, circumstances, events, people, and then that modifies its activity, which shows up as a mind, as a body, as the experience of the universe. At this stage, I wanted to go deeper into consciousness and spend more and more time in stillness and more time in transcendence and more time in what is called the samadhi experience, where the activity of the body-mind goes down to minimal activity, and you have an awareness of awareness. So at this point, when I started to experience these what we call samadhi experiences, I started to realize that if I could anchor myself in this center of being and witness the mind, the body, and the universe as activities in my own self, then I could become comfortable in the knowledge that all experience is in time, but I am not in time. And that idea took hold of me. When did that happen? Oh, about 15, 20 years ago. It started to happen, and it got deeper and deeper and deeper till now. I can easily say with honesty that I feel anchored in being as my true identity. I realize that my experiences are in time, and that my mind and my body and the world that I experience is a projection of conditioned consciousness. And I can actually be a witness to that conditioned consciousness as well. I can be a silent witness to mind, body, and experiences of the world, and also be a silent witness to my own conditioned ways of thinking and speaking and responding and reacting. So that is a process called metacognition that I'm actually getting more and more intimate with. So to answer your question, it was not a defining moment. It was an accumulation of all that I had learned during my life and all those that came before me, and that brought me to the state where I'm in, the silent witness of all that is, and ultimately also the witness of the witness, the watcher of all experience, and then the watcher of the watcher. So is this the end of the process? I don't feel so. I mean, I still get drawn into taking sides. I still get drawn into the political conversation. I still get drawn into the melodrama that is all around us. And in fact, I won't even say the melodrama, I would say the insanity. of all that is happening around us in the world. How can you call a world with extreme poverty, with social and economic injustice, with war, with terrorism, with ethnocentrism, racism, hatred, prejudice, with eco-destruction, with mechanized death? How can we call this sane? So we are living in a collective insanity, and it is easy to be drawn into it, and it is easy to start to participate in it because it's so overwhelming in its melodrama. But as soon as I become aware of that, I do go back into being and realize that the only way to actually move in the direction of a collective sanity is to be the change ourselves, and then hang out with people like you who are also wanting to be the change. People who are undergoing personal transformation, getting together and collectively creating a shift in collective consciousness. There is no social or collective transformation unless there is also simultaneously a personal transformation, because we as persons create the collective. But at a deeper level, we have to realize that even the person is a process in consciousness. Even the person is an activity, a process in awareness, and therefore we cannot identify with the person. We have to identify with the awareness in which that process is occurring, and when we see that, then we'll realize that at the deepest level there's no person. It's just another process, just another activity. We are the awareness in which the whole universe is arising and subsiding in every moment of time. And the experience of that universe, of course, is a result of the projection of our collective consciousness and our personal conditioning as well. So right now I'm focusing on 4 principles, and these 4 principles are: number 1, in every moment be aware that every situation, every circumstance, every event, every relationship is actually a projection of the conditioned self. Number 2, realize that the ego is a hallucination, a construct that humans have agreed to, and yet it is the cause of all conflict in the world. The divided mind, the conditioned mind, the fragmented mind. Number 3, being anchored in the knowledge that the true self, which we all are, was never born and is not subject to death. And number 4, recognize that all form and phenomena is created by the formless self. And hence the book, You Are the Universe. And hence this forum for discussion, discussing our true nature and helping each other in creating a better world and a better experience of that which we'll call life, of the process. But we are not the process, we are the awareness in which that process is happening. That's the realization that we need to come to. So there's much more to say, but we will continue this conversation, of course. And remember that we have a long journey ahead of us, and the journey is, in fact, the greatest adventure that consciousness can take, and that is to know itself. Okay, that's all for today. All the best. And I will be in touch on a daily basis. I'm just looking at some of your comments, and looks like most of you are agreeing with this and that it makes sense to you. And I'll just answer a few questions. Surendra Kumar, how are you sure that there is no birth or death for consciousness? You have to experience pure consciousness to realize that it is not in time. Only its activities are in time. And the activities are sense perceptions, images, feelings, thoughts, which is what the mind is, which is what the body is, and which is what the universe is. And you have to be grounded in that being to know that it is timeless. You are a timeless being. And that is what the true self is. Okay, I think good for today. Take care. God bless. Be happy. Let's all take care of each other.